Good afternoon, good evening to everyone in the galactic family. Today, we welcome a true legend in the world of Sasquatch mysteries, Ron Morehead. For over half a century, Ron has ventured deep into the unknown, capturing the now famous Sierra Sounds. Enigmatic audio recordings revealing an ancient non human language echoing in the forest. His journey blends science with the mystical, exploring not just the footprints left behind, but the consciousness, intelligence, and interdimensional nature of these elusive beings. Through his books, Ron challenges the notion of Sasquatch as mere flesh and blood, suggesting instead that they walk the thin veil between the worlds. Ron, welcome to the Galactic Family.
Well, thank you, Jay. I appreciate you having me on.
I definitely appreciate you coming on. Um, So let's just go from the beginning. How did you first encounter the Sierra, sounds in the mountains?
Well, it actually started with the Johnson brothers who had a hunting camp 8 miles in the wilderness, way up in the 8,400 feet elevation, way back in the back country of the Sierra Nevada mountains, California. They usually go in the summertime, check out the camp. If it's a deer hunting camp, that's all it was. And but they've been going there since 1958. Well, they encountered a presence of some big something came in. At first, they thought it had to be a bears or something like that, but they were arguing. There's more than one, and they went out later when all this stuff stopped, and they saw this huge track, and they realized, this the sounds they made was not a bear, and they're avid hunters. So anyway, they came out and told the rest of the guys, which there was five of them altogether, three more guys, and I wasn't part of the group at that time, but I was friends with them all. But I wasn't a hunter at the time. So
Yeah.
anyway, they all went back up. And these things came back again in the evening time, and was starting to make their noises. It scared one guy off so bad he had to leave, and I guess he had to hold his jaws to keep from chattering. All had guns, heavily armed, and but they didn't have to shoot at them. And they thought maybe from the noises they were making, they might be coming in the shelter, which is just a bunch of trees in a circle held together by cables and deadfall leaned up against it. So that's kind of kept them away.
Yeah.
They thought, and they kept them safe anyway, and came out of the rain because they had plastic over the top with deadfall up there too. And so we get them out of the weather when the weather was bad. 8,400 feet elevation, Sierra Nevada mountains. You can't be there in the wintertime. There's several feet of snow. So anyway, one of the guys, he said, "I'm out of here." The next morning, he just shot out of there, and he came back and told the wives what the Johnson brothers were saying was true. There's some kind of monster up there, and he was shaking. It was scared him so bad. Very religious person. He didn't know where to put that in his paradigm. So the wives were all worried because the guys didn't come out when they were supposed to, and they're a day late. And they said, "You got to go back and see if they're okay," because at that time they didn't know what they're dealing with. A monster, they're going to eat them, or what's happening, And he said, "Well, I'm not going back by myself." So he asked me to go. I'm a friend, like I say, with all. And of course, I wanted to know too. The story's pretty incredible. These things, whatever they are, I wanted to find out too.
Yeah, I would too.
So we walked back up, and it was a taxing trip. I tell you, about killed me getting in there, but we got there. The guys were okay, and anyway, that's kind of how the adventure started. I started going back up to whether I became part of the group then, and till we got snowed out and couldn't go back anymore. And these things kept coming around the camp. We started taking tape recorders in and recording little cassette recorders. That's all we had that we could pack in, because once you pack in, we had some barrels we took in with horses and all that in 1972, a year later. This all started in 1971 when the Johnson brothers came out. So it started for me in 1971 too, when I got involved with the group, and I decided I'd be able to become a hunter if I want to be part of this thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
They weren't attacking us. They weren't, like I said, carrying us away to sleep bag or doing like that. But because they left a Bigfoot impression, had these huge voices, we just assumed that we would call them Bigfoot. But we're not sure what really they were, because some of the enigmas associated with them just didn't fit within Newtonian physics at all. It didn't make sense to us, and we couldn't figure it out. In 1972, the summer of 72, we took an investigative reporter, Alan Berry, in, who was trying to figure out who could be hoaxing these guys. That's all he thought about, who could be doing this way up here. He never could figure that out, but he was an investigative reporter with a master's degree in science, and all the time I got to know him pretty well after that, and we started talking about this later on in conventions and different places and meets. So that's how it got started. But he fostered the studies at the University of Wyoming to show the sounds we recorded were genuine, that they were not manufactured, they were not speeded up, they were not slowed down. There was no 60-cycle hum. Professor Curlin at the University of Wyoming did a year-long study on them and gave a report on that at the Anthropology of the Unknown in British Columbia in 1978. And it's in a book, Man Like Monsters on Trial, his report. And it shows where the Deppel-Rain represent, compared to human, one of the animals, I guess you call them up there, was over 8 foot tall. So I think we had some bigger ones up there too from the size of the tracks, because the size of the track of that one was 19 inches. And anyway, it wasn't until 2008 when a cryptolinguist from the Navy, like I said, let me back up. Dr. Curlin gave the report to the University of British Columbia in 1978. And it wasn't until 2000, well, that didn't get academia on board, though, even though he's a renowned professor, written several papers, really high class. I mean, got a high security clearance and everything with the military, even. He's not a military man, though. He was a professor at the university. So it wasn't until 2008 when Scott Nelson, a cryptolinguist from the Navy, retired from the Navy as a cryptolinguist, which is a person who they train. He is a 2-time graduate of the Foreign Language Institute in Monterey for foreign languages. And for the military, he did that in his whole. Anyway, he studied. He heard of an accident, came out and interviewed us. And he said, "I'd like to study these if I could." And he came back and said, "These things have a language by the human definition of language," which was very important. We knew they were conversing with each other from the sounds we recorded, but we didn't know the significance of language at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But according to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University, he says only humans have the ability with a vocal mechanism to create sapient language like we're talking now.
So it was a language. It was a specific language. It wasn't a language based off of mimicry.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
It was their own language that
their
you
own,
captured.
Their own language. Yeah.
Wow.
That's very critically important. And the more I look into it, but that got me involved in it. Now, we were churchgoers. I mean, we're Christian people. We believe all that way. So I started studying biblical history and tried to get into where these things could have come from, because giants aren't supposed to be around anymore, you know.
Well, yeah.
But these are giants. They're big. They're really big. And anyway, Scott Nelson said they had all language, and Dr. Lieberman says only humans have that. So that puts it into a category of me. They have to have a human component like we do. The component of language is only humans are supposed to have that on the place of this planet. Dolphins talk, everything, I don't say talk, everything communicates. And whales, dolphins, ants communicate. I mean, everything communicates, but only us communicate with sapient language like we're doing.
Yeah.
And that's, except they missed it, because these things, whatever they are, at least the ones we encountered up there, have a language. And then they have a human component. Now you get into the DNA that's been done. Some of it's been done from years ago, and they said there was a human part of the mitochondrial DNA, and they got thumbs down over the academia because only humans can have that. So it had to be contaminated.
And I've heard that a lot. And every time that somebody brings up that, I've heard that a lot. They'll sit there and they'll bring up a sample and they'll be like, "Oh, well, it has some characteristics of human in it. It's contaminated. So
right.
Contaminated it. We got to do another one." I'm like, what? I was like, I'm wearing gloves.
Well, there's a whole lot to that whole story. And there was another geneticist went up in Bhutan, up in the Himalayas up there above Bhutan, 17,000 feet. They found a trackway. This was National Geographic sponsored, and she took eDNA, which is environmental DNA, out of the trackway, and the mitochondrial came back human too. 99%. So, wow. But you don't hear about that much because it's outside of academia's paradigm. They all got their minds made up. This has to be some kind, because if it's not in the gene bank of billions and billions of samples, it can't be real. It has to be contaminated because they know everything there is to know, right?
Yeah, they wish.
But all these years I've been studying this. I've been all around the world now, looking into Belize, into Nepal, Siberia. I've been mainly in South America is where my eyes were really open into the enigmatic structures that are down there around Cusco and those places. And it's just phenomenal to realize that this world has been visited by aliens, and they're being visited now by aliens, and now our government even acknowledges that. And I actually saw a big blue ball, but looked like the moon coming down real slow, controlled up there one time when this Bigfoot stuff was going on. So I think there's a connection, and quite sure there's a connection. And of course, that led me into the cuneiform text, which is the Sumerian tablets, which was oldest known language known to man, supposedly 3400 BCE. And you get into that and you realize where all these different stories from different Bibles, different texts came from. They're part of that been morphed into what the narrative of the king at the time wanted it to be. The stories.
Oh yeah, the conqueror always writes the story.
Yeah. But I think there's an alien connection. I think because I communicated with these things by 1974, after I've been up there three years or so. They got comfortable with me and my friend Bill, and when we'd come up there with our horses and mules and pack the supplies in for whatever reason, we put them in these big barrels we'd packed in, and anyway, that way we wouldn't have to. When we did walk in, we didn't have to carry so much stuff. We had some food there, we had our sleeping bags there. It was all good. Of course, that's all been taken out now, after years later. But anyway. It was quite an adventure, but I started yelling back at them when we were outside the shelter. Normally they wouldn't interact with us or start screaming or making their noises or whatever they were doing, chattering, I'd call it.
Yeah.
Same chattering that you got with the Albert Osmond story from British Columbia in 1924, I think it was, when he said they were chattering amongst them. He was held captive for 6 days. John Green writes about that in his book, Apes Among Us. And so people do hear them chattering like that. They'll hear their dog call out there when their dog isn't with them. They'll hear their name call when no one's supposed to be around. And things like that happen. We had some very mysterious things happen to us up there that we just couldn't talk about for a long time because we couldn't make sense out of them. So Al Berry, having a master's degree in science, says, don't talk about the crazy stuff up here. Says you get anybody to talk to you, listen to you at all. And but I do now. I don't care. I'm in my 80s now, and I just say what it is. And I've said that I've never lied, and I'm not going to lie about this thing. And I don't try to convince people that Bigfoot exists. These things have big feet, but are they Bigfoot? No. These things are not all the same all over the world. They're not the same.
It's like Albert says, here on LinkedIn. Yeah. I got it on LinkedIn. I don't really. He doesn't have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
They come right to his house, and they do. That's
because
awesome, Albert.
Because their energy, they can follow you around with their energy. We're all energy at the most minute level.
And they come to certain people with certain vibrational energies.
Vibration's the key to it all, Jay. Yeah. Really, you got it down. Yeah, everything is energy, frequency, and vibration. And I've gotten into quantum physics because that is the science behind all the woo-woo and stuff that's going on.
Yeah,
because there is a science. There's an answer to everything that exists, and it wouldn't be a question out there. So I'm saying all this because it got me into my second book, which is a quantum Bigfoot. I get into the quantum aspects of their nature and how if they can find the frequency of anything, according to Einstein, you find the frequency of anything, you can change matter into energy. Their energy into matter. They're interchangeable. And that was proven by Dr. Paul Dirac, 1933, with his antimatter. He won the Nobel Prize in 1933 for the antimatter, which was proven physically by CERN in 2012 when the particles changed into energy.
Yeah,
you can sense energy, but you can't see it.
Well, I just heard 3 days ago that the new scientific breakthrough, they now invented a 3D hologram that you can touch.
Wow. Well, I see those things in my sleep at night. When I touch, I go through. Anyway, yeah, it's amazing the stuff they're coming up with now. But I think we're all being enlightened right now. We're all being given things that that are going to help us in the long run because we all have a vibrational frequency. We all have to raise that frequency out of this third density to ever get out of it. Otherwise, you got to repeat it because you got to learn one way or the other. We have to learn. That's all life's about, is learning, experiences. And
Yeah.
it's how you respond to the experience that I talk about. You got to respond with love and compassion in every experience you have, and don't be the victim of anything, but respond with love and care. And that's the masters. You get back into them, and they talk that stuff too. And if you respond to it with anger or ego or greed or anything like that, you're going to be in trouble with your own vibration. It just keeps it down. You want to increase your vibration, you got to think better.
Well, it's not only that; it's that their language is really different from ours in a way that they might be okay. Yes, humans only have the voice that can make the language with the voice box, but we can't do infrasound. They can.
I believe that.
They can blast while they're doing these things or yelling at you. They're not just yelling, they're sending something in it to make you feel a certain way.
They can do that. Warren Johnson and I walked out of our shelter one night when one of these things was mouthing off out by one of the trees close by, and we thought we'd go up there and get a glimpse of this thing. We were getting kind of bold then, because we realized they weren't going to eat us, and they weren't throwing rocks at us or nothing. So we went out there and started walking up slowly towards this tree, and all of a sudden he and I both just got frozen in our tracks. Like I read it in my book, my Voice of the Wilderness book. It's like a force field in Star Trek. You just couldn't go, and I don't know how to explain it other than that we couldn't go forward, and we weren't talking to each other. Other than finally Warren said,
It's
"I can't walk."
Fight or flight moment when you're like,
I couldn't go, and he couldn't.
Forward.
And he couldn't go forward, and we'd go backward, and we're going to go forward, and we were close to that tree. We thought it had to be behind that huge tree, And he said, "I don't know about you, but I got to go back. He said, I can't go forward anymore." And I said, "I can't either." So we both went back into the shelter. As soon as we got back in the shelter, the thing started mouthing off again behind that tree, like it was making fun of us or something.
Like,
I believe it. I brought that up to a scientist one time because he said, "Well, it had to be pheromones or infrasound." And at the time, I thought, well, it has to be infrasound because pheromones only work within the same species, right?
Yeah.
Well, of course, now that I know there's a human component to it, I'm not, I can't rule that out, but I still think it was infrasound because infrasound does affect humans.
Yes.
Elephants use it to communicate over long, long distances. That go through mountains. We don't hear it, but it's there. It's like ultrasound too. Dogs hear the whistle, but we don't hear that. Our hearing is limited to 20 to 20,000 hertz, something like that, and it's just like our olfactory sense. It's limited to our smelling. We can only smell. A bear can smell 7 times better than we can, and a dog like 7 times. A bear can smell 20 times better. Also, our eyesight. We see within a frequency. Everything is frequency. Let's keep that clear.
Well, we can only see in a certain frequency.
We only see within 430 and 770 terahertz. That's our light's frequency. All these other frequencies are out there. All these frequencies are out there. And that's where people are seeing ghosts. If they can get out of their third density a little bit, you'll see the energy of other things. And that's what you'll see. But you won't see anything in this density unless Abraham Lincoln said, you find what you look for. So we have to be objective about this.
Did you do analysis on the Sierra sounds that you captured to try to maybe in the computer try to figure out the if it had infrasound and everything with it?
Our cassettes Jay didn't record infrasound.
Okay.
It was just cassette tapes. That's all you had in the 70s. So we contacted a scientist back east someplace, and it said they had the equipment because they were studying infrasound with tigers and elephants.
Yeah.
And large animal giraffes have infrasound. And she was going to send us some equipment so we could set it up there, And I'll send her some of the sounds that we were trying to capture, that we had captured, I say. And she listened to them and said, well, hey, that sounds too human-like. It can't be real. She lost confidence. Albert got so mad at her. She said, that's not science. And he wrote to all the universities and everything that's been funding her and told them, this is not a scientist, because she just listened to it and thought she could be objective about it. She didn't do a study on them at all.
Now, we're talking about Dr. Lynn Curlin is the one that her findings were that it was outside the human capacity.
Yes.
For the Sierra sounds.
Yes, Correct.
So, I mean, right there, you have proof anyway. You have.
Well, you should have, but again, you got the academia that just can't swallow that. They've been raised in conditions and parameters of discipline. Their discipline says you got to stay within this. You got to stay within Darwinism. You got to stay within Newtonian physics, and if you get out of that, you're going to get laughed at and kicked out and lose your funding and all that stuff. So I can understand them. I talk with those guys all the time. Not all the time anymore, but because I'm out in the weeds, they say. But that's probably where quantum physics is out in the weeds, because it's something you can't. Newtonian physics is what we're all trained with in in fifth grade. Everything falls and you measure everything. Everything's measurable, predictable, material, physical. Well, quantum physics isn't that way. It's unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
And we're learning more and more about that stuff. And I encourage anybody to try to learn everything they can about that, because that's the real world you live in, is the quantum world. We can only see the third density, but all these other densities are out there, and you got to learn how to understand that they're there. It's like trying to understand the end of the universe. You'll never understand the end of the earth, because how could there be a no end?
I like the fact of the one test that they had with what was it, a non-observable particle beam that went like this through everything, and it was a waveform.
Yeah.
But then when we actually looked at it, it shows a direction to go, and it was like
that's the split. Yeah, Once you observe it, it becomes real. So light is what makes things real for us. And we think we know a lot of stuff here, but we don't know much at all. We're just not. But what one man calls God, another man calls the laws of physics. So spiritual world, the etheric world is synonymous with quantum physics, in my opinion. And I think these things.
Have you heard other dialects or languages? Like when you were up there, like did you hear? Well, obviously, the Sierra sounds was one talking to another, so they had to be different. But did you have any others other than that?
No.
Okay.
No, just the only things I really came out with is the recordings from the Sierra Mountains. Those are ones that's been studied by professionals, and they have the credibility. So I don't have to really try to prove anything to anybody. I let the science stand behind it all. What the professors say, what the trained linguists say, and all that.
Oh, I believe it.
Yeah. So, but there's something about these things that I think have an alien component to them. If you get into the cuneiform text, the Sumerian cuneiform, the Anunnaki, if you go back that far, if you don't want to, start looking at those texts, which are the oldest known language known, like I said before. And so many of our current readings have a core of truth coming from that. But it's all been blanketed and changed by whatever king wanted to change it,
Well, I mean, it's like this. I mean, it like we talked about before. The conqueror makes the history afterwards. So once something gets demolished, like Library of Alexandria or this or that, they're like, this never happened, and then we tell everybody that it never happened, and we go forward.
Yeah. Well, like the Anunnaki, there were if you relate that right into biblical text, you got the fallen angels.
Yes.
And you got them inbreeding, crossbreeding with troglodytes, the people, and that were evolving, and they created a being. It could have been a Bigfoot type being, because you got the Gigantopithecus that was made by something, from Asia.
Yeah.
And then you got us, which we're something about us that's different, right? We think.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And scientists really can't explain how we got genetically changed overnight like that. But I think it was the Anunnaki, and if you get into the cuneiform text, every time they talk about God, they talk about Elam, which is plural every time. And so they were gods. They were considered gods because they were powerful ones from the sky, they said. And they could do things that regular people couldn't do. And then you had the demigods, which were created from them. And it goes on and on about stories. And you see how these other texts got mixed up all the way from Constantine on to the Catholics, or when they search. I hate to get
That's
into
what
this religious thing, but it's hard to talk into the ethereal realm without getting into religions, because I'm not a religious person, but we're all spiritual, whether we like it or not.
Oh yeah.
And, this ethereal body that we have is our consciousness, our spirit. That's what's going to continue on after this biological body passes away.
So is this right here? This right here is a Gigantopithecus. I can't say it right.
Pithecus, yeah.
So yeah, I'd say yeah. And you know what? If it was crossed between human and whatever fell, then hey, it's alien. It's a combined species between us and them. So who knows what they could do?
Well, they're not all the same, and they don't know for sure that it even stood upright. They don't have a full body. They only have parts of it. So they know it was big. They know it was probably about that size, but they don't know. They don't know if it was sapient or not. They don't know. They just don't know. DNA. But in my opinion, well, doesn't matter what my opinion is, but
well, you're the expert. It does.
Well, I don't know. Expert. You start off with an X, then you start off with a spurt, then you become an expert. Wow, that's a little bit funny.
Oh boy. Yeah, it was.
Anyway,
you got to start somewhere, and you've been doing it well over 50 years.
Yeah, I have, but it's been quite a venture for me. I was fortunate enough to be around the world, looking at all these different enigmas associated with, and what different people say about these things. The Himalayas,
When you went out there, I was just going to talk about the language again. Did you hear telepathic communications too?
No, I'm too analytical.
Okay.
And I mean that. Well, I think about things too much. I think, well, where'd that come from? That's probably, I'm guessing at this, but why they tried to communicate something with me that night in '74, which I got recorded. It's on my second CD on my website.
So this guy is not listening to.
Well, yeah, they were
about now we're just going to yell at him.
The cryptolinguist said it's the same vocal mechanism that did the ones from the earlier years, because the earlier years were very aggressive, sounding like they were trying to scare us off or something.
Yeah.
And yet the one in '74 was more slowed down and more articulate. And I was mimicking them. I was trying to yell back at them because I wasn't afraid then. I think fear is your enemy, by the way. If you're afraid, you may as well not go out there, because they're going to feed on that and not feed well. But excuse me. It's they were saying something to me, and I was mimicking them back. And that's the night I saw one, by the way. 1974, and don't tell us how many times they've been around, because if they get out of our light frequency, which is the 778, 430 terahertz, right in there, you're not going to see them. And you hear these reports, and I've interviewed people over the years about how they color right in front of them. They call it the predator effect, pixelization.
I've seen that myself.
Oh, you have? Well,
yes.
I never saw that, but I never looked for it. I never thought something like that could happen until I realized what Dr. Dirac really found was the antimatter, and that when the energy and matter are interchangeable. And that's how I think miracles were done anywhere. If you find the frequency of something, it changes matter. And you can get it into energy and change to what you want. So you get the shapeshifters too, which people talk about. You got the dogman too, which people talk about back in the East a lot. Land Between the Lakes has got them a lot, and that's back in Tennessee, Kentucky area. Wow, it's just phenomenal, the stuff that's going on right now.
So what's your theory on Bigfoot's interdimensional nature? Like, why don't they leave traditional evidence behind or anything for us to, does it go with them? Or
well, they don't want to do that. Why would they? They want to. They're not supposed to interfere. Nothing's supposed to interfere with our karma. What our choices are. That's what life is about. Making decisions on your own. You can't tell somebody else.
They're in their plane and they're coming over here and they're like, oh, let's hang out a little bit. And then
I think they do play with you, Jay. They played with us up there. All these strange things that happen. My daughter and I went out for a walk one day. We walked up there, just her and I, nobody else around, and and I left my backpack in camp with our food still in it, but I
Yeah.
put my sweaty T-shirt over it so the bears wouldn't get into it. There's a lot of bears up there. And we took off for a walk for the day and came back later that afternoon. And the backpack was still closed up, the T-shirt over, but the brand new loaf of bread was out and gone. Nothing but the wrapper on the ground. Now, a mouse wouldn't have done that. A bear wouldn't have done that. Nothing could have done that except something with opposable thumbs. And that's the kind of stuff they do. They play with you like that. And it just, a lot of things happened up there that just, there's no good answer for it. You just sort of drop your jaw and say, well, okay.
Oh, yeah. I had something like that happen. And the ending was just incredible. Me and my best friend sleeping in the middle of the woods, just me and him. Nobody else, have all our supplies in there. We're just going to investigate the area a little bit. Walking around and everything. And I'm like, Birch, what'd you say? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, I thought I just heard you. I'm like, did you just say something? He's like, no, I didn't say anything. I'm like, okay, I'm hearing something. And it was something about, they wanted my bag of berries or something. I brought this bag with me of like some kind of berries or something, and I had it in my tent because me and him were snacking on them at night. And we just got the urge to get up, go out, and then all of a sudden I'm hearing, hey, that bag. I'm like, what? So I'm like, okay, well, fine. So we get in the tent. I'm like, we're gonna do this. So I go out there, I put a plate out there. I'm like, let's see if this happens. And I put some on the plate. I was like, we're not going to put it close to the tent. We put it way out by the, beginning of the wood line. I went to sleep. We both went to sleep. We didn't want to bother him or nothing. Woke up in the morning. My berries are gone. And there's a rock there. It is the shiniest rock I have ever seen in my life. And I'm looking at this thing going, did it just pay us? Like, did it, like, not pay, but like you give and take. Like, here, I'm going to take this from you and I'll exchange.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was incredible.
Well, things like that happen. Of course, you got to be careful where you put the food because
I didn't want to bother him. I put it way out there.
Well, some varmint could have got it too. But the replacement of something else, a gift back, is a sign that something other than.
Oh yeah.
A bear would have done that. A bear would just gobbled it. A rat would have gobbled it. Yeah, we had. One summer we went up to our camp and we had just re-roofed the plastic, put the deadfall over it and put some fresh alders that we cut off at the spring, put that over that. So it looked like a big beaver's nest, between the group of trees. And that fall when we went up there, Bill and I, this is the night that I ended up recording them later that evening, but we noticed that on top of the shelter, there was a fresh alder brush up there. That alder had been twisted off, but that big around. I mean, we're talking about something humans wouldn't.
Yeah.
It's just big and placed up there. And, a lot of times we had this old bucket that we used for watering the horses when we didn't want to walk them over the spring or something. And we would put pine cones in it to start fires. And we'd empty them or go pick up pine cones later in the evening when we wanted to. And that morning we left, the pine cone thing was empty from the night before, and we come back and it was full of pine cones. It's like they offered us a gift for leaving food out for them because we were leaving food out for them.
So is there a connection though between like Sasquatch energy fields and disappearances?
Well, I'm not sure about the disappearances. I mean, we all have our guesses on that.
I'm not saying they are disappearing people. I'm saying that them coming back and forth maybe left something open, and like those children, they walk around the corner, the mom walks around the corner, they're gone. Like, where did they go? Did they just walk through something by accident?
Well, that's possible. I mean, anything's possible in quantum theory, but I don't know. I've heard those stories over and over, and
I don't want to think that they're taking them, but I want to think it's a mistake. They wandered through something.
well, but then they get returned unharmed.
Well, yeah, or they get lost, and wherever they are in that world,
Well,
we don't know what's over there.
yeah, how they end up on top of that mountain later on.
Oh yeah, I know. Or what is it? Uh, Clean, but like their whole body is clean,
Oh,
and they're up like the one mountain one. They were up on a mountain and they checked the
mm.
body.
Well,
Whole body.
David Pilates has gotten a whole series of books, Missing 401. In fact, he wrote the forward to my last book, Bigfoot Unveiled. And he's a good friend of mine, and he's done a lot of research
Yeah.
into that area, and I know
There's
him
a
quite
lot of
well.
mysterious stuff that happens like in national
Yeah,
parks. Like,
yeah, and he's a retired investigator, so he knows the rules, and he's pretty black and white. I mean, no in between. But he won't never say Bigfoot did it, or he won't say aliens did it. He just says, this is what happened. You make your own mind up, But when some little kid comes back with a story that some bear kept him warm for 3 nights up there by Yosemite,
right?
well, he wouldn't know about a Bigfoot. He just knew it was hairy like a bear. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Well, that's just like we confuse ancient language with how they saw it back then with what we think of it now, and it's like, no, it's not the same. They thought of it different because they might have thought it was a flaming arrow in the sky because they didn't know about rocket fuel and all this other stuff,
yeah,
but we do now.
right.
You can't dismiss it, totally.
Yeah, I got a book on idioms. Idioms are what you know what idioms are.
Yep.
They're things. That's one reason I can't translate my quantum book or any of my books into Russia or into some other language, which they've been trying to get me to do, because I tell some things that can be considered funny, even though it was not funny at the time necessarily.
Yeah.
But how do you explain that in another language? So it just
Yeah.
idioms are interesting. Like if you was to tell somebody 2,000 years ago that your grandma got run over by a bus, well, they wouldn't know what you're talking about.
So what are the things you see, like stories like of witnesses they encounter orbs, telepathic messages,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
what other paranormal stuff happens around Bigfoot?
Yeah. Well, basically orbs. Orbs, we saw those up there. There's orbs. Orbs are just a form of energy, and you see a lot of those
Yeah.
at the up in Montana, at the Montana Vortex. Joe Hauser, my friend up there, runs that, and he was a Bigfoot investigator, and he talks sometimes at conventions. But he's also bought that whole area because of the orbs, the Bigfoot activity, and stuff like that. And I advise anybody that's ever in Montana, go by and see his stuff there, because he'll throw you for a loop. He's got an actual vortex there where it bends the light. And
that's awesome.
where you see a tree, you think the tree's right there, but it's really over there, And if you're in that vortex, it changes
Did they find
things.
petroglyphs around there too? Then with like the circles.
I don't know about that because it's on a main drag just going into Glacier National Park.
It probably is. They're probably somewhere around there because they
well,
were.
What they do see a lot of, Jay, is the UFOs.
Oh
going
yeah.
in Columbia Mountain up there. They can sit on their porch and watch them. Every once in a while they'll see them, but they don't go behind the mountain. They don't go on top of the mountain. They go into the mountain.
Yeah, they go. Well, they don't even need to hit the ground because they match the frequency and just go through it.
Exactly.
I knew that.
You got this down.
Well, I'm a MUFON section state director. I do a lot of cases. I was on Ancient Aliens, a bunch of other shows. I do a lot of field work, and
Good.
I don't like when people come out and they're like, hey, trust me. Here you go. This is it. It's just me saying it. Here you go. Did you go to a scientist? Did you go to a biologist? Did you go to?
Yeah.
No, just trust me. No. I don't do that.
Right.
You come at me and you say, I've got lab reports. I've got this and I've got this. We are talking.
That's why I went with Curlin. I went with Scott Nelson, the cryptolinguist, and Lieberman, Brown University.
Yeah.
So
You
you
got
put
to
all
have
these
hard
people together.
science to start.
Well, you got to find the science behind the issue that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And you can't just come out and say it. If I was just saying, hey, we had some Bigfoot up at the camp, well, who'd believe me and why? We recorded them. We got the information. It's been studied. And that's so important. I tell these people, well, we got these sounds we want to record. You want to listen to them? I said, no, I don't want to listen to them. I can't tell you anything about it. I can tell you what I think, but that doesn't mean anything. Well, it might mean something to them, but
Depends.
really,
Like, were you out there with them when it happened?
well, and you got to see something too. Tracks or some other evidence. And I have seen these things. My daughter saw them 3 times up there at our camp.
Oh, wow.
And Johnson Brothers, I think, got glimpses of it. You only get glimpses of them, but I don't know how many times these things are making their sounds right outside our shelter up there. And I mean, you'd think that you'd see the body, because you hear them walking around after everybody laying down in there in their sleeping bag. You hear this bipedal walk. You keep waiting for the light to break through the cracks of the walls and from the logs that are laying up there, and you don't ever see the light break. I never did. I wonder how many times they weren't outside of our frequency.
That's going into quantum mechanics then too, right?
Absolutely.
With just like
energy, matter, interchanging.
Yeah, like I got into it really good with eyesight. Like our eyesight is so limited. We can't see ultraviolet. We can't see gamma. We can't see X-ray. We can't see night vision. We can't see. Like we can see basic vision, but cats have night vision, or other people have other animals have different vision. Like that's kind of like the quantum aspect too. Like we can only see this, but they have way more range, like a vision of I don't even know what to call it. It's like a extrasensory perception above all.
Well, it depends on what they're made like and who made them. Because the Anunnaki, I think, started all this long time ago.
Now, do you think that's why they're not coming over and messing with us like a lot? Because same thing with the Anunnaki. They were like, leave them here. We'll see what they do. Oh, wait, they're not doing good. Flood. We'll start over. They did some stuff,
Oh, got to read up on that, because there's a lot of research goes into what was going on then, how it combines with so many ancient texts that are coming into what we are given to read. So many people are brainwashed with this conditioned mind up here. It's all conditioned. And I get into the pineal gland, which is, I think, directly connected. I don't think it is directly connected to the heart, which has its own brain, by the way.
I believe
your brain is the energy part that feeds the mind up here. You get this feeling in your gut, and it tells you up here that you got a feeling, and you go by it. But we are all analytical.
Yeah.
We are conditioned with this thing sitting on our shoulders here, and if your heart says go over there because this old lady needs help, your brain says no, there's $1,000 right in the corner over there. Go over there. You're going to probably go over there to listen to your heart. I could encourage people to listen to your heart's brain, because your heart's trying to steer you in the right direction. It'll always be the right direction too. And I love that part of it, because once you learn to get the heart coherence, and that's what chakras are all about. That's what balancing your chakras are all about, is getting all that in lined up so that you can listen and pay attention. You will raise your personal vibrational frequency, and you won't get sick anymore. You'll be good. And, and we all fall into what's going on in this world, because we live in a third density environment, but it's on purpose. Nobody's an accident. Nobody's an accident. Everybody's got a purpose. It's all about experiences, and learn to respond to the experiences wisely. You get out of this third density and you'll get into the sixth. In fact, one of my theories on manifestation code of Tesla, 3, 6, and 9, he says, if you understand 3, 6, and 9, you will understand the universe. Well, that's really, in my opinion, pretty simple. We live in the third density. You got to go to the sixth density before you understand what everything's really about. But then we're made in the image of the ninth density, which is the Anunnaki.
Oh, yeah.
Now there is a super consciousness above all that. But when it said, let us make man in our image, well, come on. Now, these professors, some that I talk with, are very religious, and all that. They can believe in God, but they can't believe in the woo or something else besides what they've been conditioned for with their training.
And that's the bad thing about science, though, is that they have to have physical proof in their hands to believe anything. They can't go a little bit beyond and say, well, I can say what if on this because I have something to go on. It might not be everything, but I have enough to go on that I can say it's real and not fantasy.
Well, like Jeff Meldrum, he's a professor at Idaho State University, and he's into realizing these things are real. But he's also within the parameters of classical science, and classical science is Newtonian physics from 1687. But still, he knows there's more going on. There's something missing in evolution, and that thing that's missing is what is a problem for Darwinism, for people who believe in there's a part missing in there which gave us our etherical body, which is not a body, the etherical who we really are. And that's all can't die. According to physics, quantum physics, energy cannot die. So Einstein wouldn't even guess what happens after that, but religions say, well, you might go to heaven if you're lucky, if you did everything right. Well, that's where it gets into Tesla again, says what one man calls God, another one calls laws of science, laws of quantum physics. They're synonymous.
So is Sasquatch, I already know, is linked to ancient civilizations, but have you went into the back history of the Sasquatch? I know Gigantopithecus, but was that the only one, or was there different beings of the same creature but different aspects? Like us, we have different aspects, Japanese and Asian and
one thing that I think has happened, Jay, is I think they've crossbred with indigenous people, which means 23 pairs of chromosomes.
That's what the next ancient civilizations.
Some of them have been diluted down a lot, and they're more human-like than others. What we were dealing with up there in the Sierras when I was recording these things was more alien. I mean, I say alien because
like if they're still, did they come over and crossbreed just to make enough of them so that they didn't have to come back over and do that again? Or are they still doing it?
I'm not sure they're still doing it. They got no reason to.
These things. Doing it, so they must have did it enough or had enough. Well,
if you look back a couple 100,000 years, these things have been rolling around, and so have we. So what's happened for all that time? I mean, you realize that just for mutation takes like 30,000 years, something like that. To really, you can tie your arm behind your back and let that go for 30,000 years. The first thing you know, a baby will come out without an arm. That's the way it works. But I don't know. So much I don't know, but I got my theories how it all works.
There was one thing that always got me that really excited one time was my buddy and I always go to this Indian powwow every year.
Good.
And the chief, he came up to us, and he started talking to us, and we were like, well, I asked him a question. I said, is there anything that you would, tell us about Bigfoot? And he said, well, I'll say one thing. He said, don't the whole Bigfoot thing. He said, get that name out of your mouth. He said, don't call it Bigfoot or you're going to get a Bigfoot pretty much. And I said, oh, he's like, it's a being from another dimension that is a guardian, a guardian type. Sometimes they come over, sometimes they help, sometimes they don't help. When you're in their area or encroaching, they'll throw rocks. They'll get you out of their area if they don't want you there.
Yeah, I visited people who had rocks. Me and Al Berry went to interview some guys who's way back in the mining camp, way back in the middle of nowhere, Northern California. And they said they'd been seeing these things off and on. And that night we stood around a fire we'd built, and a rock come whizzing by us. I mean, it was like an arrow going like that. Hit a tree. Found the rock next morning about 30 feet up, and we could see where it hit up the tree. And my gosh, These guys took off. They said, "We're not sticking around here. These things don't want us here."
And it's
Albert and I
mostly with
stayed there.
loggers, from what I heard.
Huh?
Mostly with loggers, from what I've heard.
Oh,
They'll
that's
go
because
to
of
an
the trees.
area.
I got a whole chapter about trees. How they don't like us cutting down trees. Clear cutting is where a lot of people see them. I've talked to people over the years. I mean, so
And
many
they
people
run.
they don't. Well,
Not the Sasquatch, but the loggers. They book it when they find out that that's there.
yeah. I mean, I know several like that that's happened, and they didn't believe in them until that happened. They don't connect it with the trees they're cutting down. They just think they accidentally saw one or something.
But then you have
Tree.
another aspect, though, that they're gentle creatures. This, like I said, this Indian chief, the last thing he said to us was, and lastly, he goes, "I'll tell you another thing. This has been passed down a little bit." He said, "They used to dance with us. We used to hold the dances in the middle of the woods, in the powwows, and the music would draw in the little ones, and they would dance around with the music. The bigger ones, though, would stand on the outside and just stare. The little ones would be dancing with everybody, not everybody, but dancing in the circle,
Cool.
having a good time. The big ones just stand there, on the outside, like this, that I don't know if I believe it or not, but I kind of do. Like
Well,
that's the
native
way they
lore
really
says
are.
they live in two worlds.
Yeah.
What could that mean? Also, the native lore says they live in trees. Well, that's where they would energize, I think, because in order to move from one dimension to the other, I think you need energy.
Okay.
And they require energy. That's why I think a lot of our batteries will go dead up there at times, and people have always reported a battery. You hear a lot of sightings around power lines and stuff like that. So I think there's something going on. They can, if they can change their matter into energy, they can go inside of a tree. Now that sounds crazy to some people. I got called Carver and said, "Oh, that's ridiculous," but it's not ridiculous when you understand science. And I'm talking about quantum science.
Mm-hmm.
Trees are very, very.
Anything you can touch is
Well, and
even
we're
this
just,
phone, even this phone is not really physical. If you go down to the microscopic level, it has
right. It's
little
empty.
vibrations.
Yeah. Strength. That's called string theory. Is what's vibrating.
Yep.
Yeah. Right. It's fun. This is all really fun. But anyway, I read my first book was my chronicle on voices in the wilderness. They're doing a documentary on that right now, the Sierra Camp. And it should be a movie actually coming out this fall.
Have you ever heard of Sasquatch Island?
Oh yeah, I know Tom Seaward.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
was
go
up there
and check that out too.
I was up there with him and with a filming crew actually on a boat. We stayed on a boat for a week, go up to island looking for setting out traps, which they brought me along because I am who I am, I guess. I didn't expect them to have too much because they're still looking for the
in-field experience that nobody else.
But they're looking for the ape in the woods, And I said, setting all these cameras out here, they're watching you do this stuff. I couldn't come out and tell them how. Well, never mind. But it was just interesting.
Yeah. Well, I thought it was interesting the one time when they were like, well, the Expedition Bigfoot, they can see the infrared. So what we're going to do is we're going to hide the infrared and spook him. And then, he's going to trip it. The log's going to come up and we're going to get him on camera. That didn't happen because
they don't know how to deal with this thing. I mean, Ronnie LeBlanc, who stepped out of that group because he thinks the same way I do. In fact, same way you do, same way.
You're not going to get him on camera.
No, well, you won't get her because she's a scientist, and they're all looking for the flesh and blood ape out there. It's mystery, but maybe if they keep going, maybe they'll step into something that's going to change their mind. I don't know, but they've got to understand science, and science says you can disappear. Mm-hmm. If you can find the frequency of the vibration that's right, you will go out of matter into energy. Now
you can go through things too if you get the right energy. That's when you said he can go. People don't believe you. He can go through a tree. I believe you because all he has to do is match the vibration, and he goes right through the tree.
Well, you're good. You got all this down, Jay.
Like there's a lot of things out there that I've seen too. Like I went into an area that we thought was Indian burial ground. Didn't know, it wasn't labeled, not marked on any map. We were actually going in to investigate to find out if it was, so I could secure it and send it up and say, we need somebody to check this out, this area out. It had stone mounds in it that were about 3 feet off the ground, about 6 feet long, and about maybe 2.5, maybe 2 feet wide. And they were all over this area. And I'm like, this looks like a burial ground. I'm like, it's everywhere. And I'm like, there's all these, rock structures. I'm like, something's not right here. So I looked into it, and here there was a war that happened, an Indian war, but on the other side of the river there in the Susquehanna in Pennsylvania. And they didn't know about this area at all. It had been washed out or something. They didn't know that there's bodies there. Me and my friend are going in there to try to document, to get evidence so we can secure the site. Oh, we got chased out. And it wasn't physical. It was, we went in. I didn't carry my pistol with me. I said, if I go in the woods, I carry bear spray because grizzly bear. Okay. And if I use that on a Bigfoot, it's not really going to really piss him off. And I'm probably going to die. So, I use it on a bear only. I'm not going to bring a gun or anything like that in the woods, but he brought his. So obviously that was probably what pissed him off in the first place. I didn't know he did. Then he says to me, look forward, Jason, down this trail. I'm like, what's going on? I'm looking. I see this black shadow. It's not a full figure, but it's just like huge, like 6.5 to 7.5 foot tall. And it was just the silhouette. And I'm like, what is that coming from the tree? And it didn't walk from the next tree and come at us like that. It went from tree to tree as we were running out. Talking to the elder, they said that you disturbed the land. You didn't have permission to be there. And if it is a guardian guarding that land of the dead, it doesn't want you there. Point blank.
Yeah. They will throw rocks if they don't want you to spot. And
that too. But that was enough. That scared the bejesus out of me.
But they don't usually hit you with them. They just scare you with them. Or they'll follow you out along the tree line. You won't see them, but you hear them over there. And,
it's like the whole, like, you're walking down the path and you're like, you hear cracking and you stop and you hear cracking and you're like, all right, something's following us.
Yeah.
Oh,
a lot of reports like that. I report from a guy, he was a firefighter, and he hunted with an attorney friend of his in the Sierras, and he had saw a Bigfoot, and they'd mess with him. They'll when you're out and about, they'll check your pack. Not necessarily disturb something, but whatever. Anyway, he had a little history going on with this Bigfoot stuff. He thought he'd better tell somebody because he seen a UFO above in the daytime, not at night, at daytime, above this mountain. I know where it's at. It's not that far from where our camp is. Well, it's a few miles away, but
yeah,
he was very, very credible. And he said he was he watched this UFO and this Bigfoot interacting, and he seen this disturbance over on the other side. Well, first of all, he was deer hunting with his attorney friend, and this deer shot right past him, went on the other side of this meadow and just froze and shot right back the other way past him. He looked over there and he seen the bushes being disturbed, and he thought, it must have been a bear or something over there. And he seen this Bigfoot, half of the Bigfoot, just half of it step out from behind there. He said, I seen a leg. He didn't tell me this until after he realized I was open-minded to it, And he said, I'd seen his leg. I seen half of him. Then all of a sudden he materialized right outside there and just walked away. And what do you do with that? I mean, what do you do with that when you don't understand how that could happen? What do you do with all this stuff? There's times when we've had so many things happened to us in that camp that I get into some of them in my books. But wow, it's just they say, well, he's a woo-woo or he's a paranormal guy or something like that. I used to think that was offensive, but it's not offensive. It's I'm a citizen scientist who studied quantum physics. Anybody can do that. And if you study that, you realize that, hey, that answers a lot of the questions, a lot of the enigmas associated with what we're dealing with.
Yeah.
It's just out there. According to Dr. Christopher Bland, Baindid, in West Texas A&M, he's a physicist. He said everything from the atom all the way through the cosmos works on the laws of quantum physics. So we only live in the third density, but all these other densities are around us. And we're actually living in those, whether you want to believe it or not, we are.
They're right next to us.
Yeah, all the time. And we can change our density anytime if you just get into this balancing yourself and understanding stuff. And I just got to get out of my analytical mind too much because I try to meditate as much as I can, but I should say as I can, but I try to do that as much as I can. I'll say it again.
Well, I will say one thing. If you go to Missing 411, and I've researched a little bit of it, it'd be wonderful stuff. Like, the kids usually come back. They usually find them somewhere. But it's like the adults don't. And I think I have something to explain that a little bit. The children are easier to come to grips if they go through something and, oh, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. We go through that. We're freaking out. Where the hell am I? Oh my God. A child walks through, they're curious. That could be the reason why they can get back out because they're not freaking out. Their energy didn't change. They're just, oh, wow. And then come back out or they get lost. But that's what I was thinking, that we
kind of started, I think, with Eisenhower.
Okay.
The 50s, back there after the atomic bomb went off in Japan. That's when the aliens started really getting worried about what we're doing to this world, how we're destroying things. And that's why there's so many reports of these things interfering with different nuclear weapon
the
tests.
Electromagnetic frequencies, yeah.
Well, it's just they're worried because aliens, for the most part, except for some species of them, which is a reptilian type, they're worried about this Earth that we're screwing up, and they really want it too because you think about this Earth is a cream of the crop. I mean, it's got everything that the other planets don't have. So
yeah,
I think there's a hybridization program going on. There has been for eons, and a lot of people walking around right now have alien in them. They don't even know it probably, but
now could that also be the Denisovanian bloodline as well? I've heard.
Denisovians?
Yes.
Denisovians?
Yes.
Could be, yeah. They have not found the nuclear DNA, which is the male counterpart, I don't think, to those.
Oh, okay.
That's the maternal DNA.
They found the female.
Yeah.
Oh, so the male could have been cross.
Well, that's the idea. That's what happened. That's why Melba Ketchum's study got thumbs down because she got into the religious aspect of the ethereal part of Anunnaki, I think, or she used God, I think, creating man, and it shouldn't have been. She should have just stayed with the science of it, but I think that's what made academia kind of down thumber because she said the human DNA in there and only humans have that. But, I think everybody's going to be woke up here for too long. We'll all know the secrets.
Well, have you ever heard of, because I've heard of this too. Have you ever heard of Sasquatch coming out or him coming out and with another creature? Using I've heard of him having like a Bigfoot. Somebody in the woods was saying that, hey, I saw this Bigfoot materialize, but he was with 4 or 5 wolves that were in front of him or something. And I was like, wolves?
Well, it's all energy.
The wolves to catch the prey, and then.
Well, if you look at the Skinwalker Ranch, when really they had that wolf, huge wolf that they couldn't kill, and these things, if they're energy, why couldn't they energize into some other form? And that's why they call them skinwalkers, because they could. And I had something happen with my daughter, my granddaughter, up close to our camp one time. We was camped out somewhere else, but my daughter had a sighting early that morning. My granddaughter, which was 18, she's a student at Santa Cruz. She was then. And she was walking along in this other area over here, 100 yards away or so. And my daughter saw this Bigfoot run across this little area. And she said, "Oh, good, Wendy's going to see this, granddaughter. Then I won't be the only one to see it, and people won't think I'm nuts."
Yeah, right.
So when Wendy came back to camp, I asked her, "Did you see anything, Wendy? Anything go on?" She said, "Yeah, a big white wolf ran out in front of me and just stopped there and stared at me and then ran up the mountain."
Well, that's
that's all I can say about that, because I said, "When did you see the coyote? You had to see a coyote." She said, "No, it was a wolf."
It's also the phenomenon. It'll pick and choose what it shows to people, like you just said.
Yeah.
Same thing with NHI, non-human intelligence. Anybody up there, they can show you yourself as anything, just like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, energy and matter are interchangeable. So, that's a fact. I don't know why people can't understand it, especially these people that, the television program you saw a while ago. Which one was it that's still on?
The Expedition Bigfoot.
Yeah. Now, she's a scientist. They're all sensible people. I know them. They've been to my place. And, and I not my camp, but my house. And they're all good people, but they just can't get their heads around something you can't see, or something that's something like we're talking about. Something can disappear when it's a fact that energy and matter are interchangeable if you find the right frequency. And everything is energy, frequency, vibration. That's so basic. That should be basic to every scientific community out there in this world. Mm-hmm. And that's been established. It's proven. At the most minute level of everything, we are energy vibrating at a frequency. That's where the string frequency, the string theory comes in. And all these other dimensions are going on, these other different densities, I should say. And we live in third. There's only three. Measurable, predictable, material, physical. That's not quantum physics. That's not the way everything is. You got the ethereal part, the spiritual part. Mm-hmm. For aliens, that's how they could shoot off like that, because they turn right into energy and they're out of here. It's just amazing how much more stuff we got to learn. And I'm happy. I just want to. I got to say, when you're green, you grow. When you're ripe, you rot.
Yes. There's just so much stuff to learn, like you said.
Well, and keep in our conditioned brain so that you can step out of it. It's like a parachute. I relate it to a parachute. If it don't open, it's not much good. You jump out of the airplane. We got to get out of this airplane that we've been conditioned in there.
Well, that's ending all these wars, first of all, because
absolutely,
that alone would just change the frequency of the planet.
We're a warring frequency. We're a warring species. Yeah, that's because of the Anunnaki. The bad ones that are here that influence the humanity. That's where the Sumerians got all this. That's how we got kick-started. It's all part of history if you just look into it and start studying it, because the cuneiform texts are the oldest, like I said earlier, the oldest known written language known to man. Mm-hmm. And that's where the core of so many different translations come from, with the cuneiform text. And if you start looking at that, and they're being translated ever since 1800s, they've been being translated. There's thousands of them. It's not like there's just one scroll out there or something. Yeah. But I just encourage anybody to look into that, because it'll open your mind up. And I like that light when you turn it on, by the way.
What's that?
Oh,
let's see here. I was actually trying to put something else on the screen here, but it's not working right. So, but this, I was going to show you this here. This is what we found. Off trail. And it was, if you get closer, the wood is all woven together. And I'm like, we're in the middle of nowhere. And there's no hunting either here. So it can't be a hunting blind. I'm in a national park.
Uh,
You
yeah,
know,
that looks very interesting.
all
The
woven together.
way it's shaped, it's like the logs that are leaning up against that one log is going across.
Yeah,
That would that's telling.
yeah. And and we found this, like, we went and I tried to bring it up, and worst idea I ever made. Tried to bring it up to the park ranger and said, "Oh, we found something out there." He said, first question he asked me, "Did you get any pictures of it?" I said, "No, I didn't get any pictures of it." He said, "Okay, good. Um, I don't want publicity out in this park, and you're going to get 1,000 people up here roaming around for Bigfoot, hurting themselves." And I'm like, "That's not my intention." I said, "My intention is to study, not to get people hurt, So I kept these, to myself. But I mean,
That's why we don't tell where the Sierra Camp is, because I don't want a bunch of people going up there. It's a pristine area. And it's also, I've been to Lovelock Caves in Nevada 4 times, really, looking at that. It's where the Sikatala giants were. The Paiutes have a story about them cannibalizing their people. They drove into this cave, set fire to the cave, and they were hairy giants, cannibalistic giants. And anyway, Sarah Winnemucca wrote about this in her book. But you start talking about Bigfoot related to it. No. BLM says, no. I wrote a letter to BLM. I said, why can't we see these skulls that were taken out of there? Why can't we da? They've all been taken out. They've all been taken away from museums, and now you can't see them anymore. And they said, well, they're just robust people. Well, how do you find over in the Humboldt Lake bed over there? There was a couple skeletons found that were 8 foot. Well, that's bigger than a robust person. That's a giant, Anyway, Sarah Winnemucca said they were actually cannibalistic. It wasn't discovered until 1911 when bat guana miners got into the cave and started taking out the bat guana. And they came across this remains down underneath it all. And that's what it wasn't until 1926, 1928, something like that, till the Smithsonian sent a 19-year-old inspector down there to check it out. he was the first one to, anyway.
Yeah. So
they don't want the word getting around the word giants there. They don't want that out there.
Oh,
said, no. Just robust people.
That's a no right there.
But same way the Yosemite and all these parks. That's where David Pilates comes in, because they can't get the information from the parks. They don't want people knowing, just like the land between the lakes over here. The parks down there, they got these people missing, which they see the dogman down there all the time, and they blame the dogman for a lot of the killings. There's been killings down there, and they don't want that word to get out because they don't want people not visiting their park. That's where their bread and butter is,
Oh, exactly. And look for if you're in those parks and everything, right? Look for federally protected land.
Mm-hmm.
All those federally protected lands are the federally protected lands are pretty much the Sasquatch hotspot.
They got them blocked off too. Some of those spots.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah. Yep, they have all that blocked off because they don't want people in there. Like the guy told me, they don't want me in there. Getting more people in there and getting them hurt. And I'm like, well, that's not what I'm trying to do. What I'm trying to do is further science. That's the whole process. You have to go through.
Yeah. Well, whatever happens, it's going to happen probably next couple of years. Things are happening. Too many UFOs are being seen.
Oh, yeah.
UAFs, I guess. The Bigfoots are being seen more often. Where do they go? That's why it's so strange to people. I think some of them have been crossbred so many times over the eons, they become more human-like, crossbreeding with indigenous people. They probably go into cave networks. There's a lot of cave networks on the West Coast. Some of them are interdimensional, still have that attribute to them. They can change their density. And some of them maybe can't do that anymore. They got too humanistic. And that's where I think the Patterson film, the female that was walking in the Bluff Creek up there.
Yeah.
I know Bob pretty well, and he I don't think would be lying about it, but it's
no.
It's just, the film speaks for itself as problem is the only gray area about that whole thing is no one can find the original film. It's all duplicated and been edited, and that's raises a question mark. However, our recordings that we recorded have been studied scientifically, and they are real. And these
Oh, I
things
think
are.
the AI model did an HD rendering or re-rendering of it or something and said that 100% authentic.
Well, I don't know. I don't know about that part, but I know AI has been
Because they were
suggested to
looking
me.
at
But
they were looking at the muscle structure.
oh, yeah.
They said that because if it was a costume, it wouldn't have muscle structure that
Oh,
moved when
yeah.
the animal moved, and
Well,
that wouldn't be possible.
I think they have more than two vocal cords. You know, we have two, but I think they have more, and that could. We don't have any idea what the
Well, they
scope of
use
their
one or two at the
frequency is.
same time. They could probably use one for infrasound with their sound, or one just sound. We don't know.
We don't know. We just know that it goes outside the human range, average human range, and that's according to Dr. Curlin, who did the year-long study at the University of Wyoming. And he shows it in a graph in the book "Man Like Monsters on Trial," printed by UCB Press in 1980. His report is in that book, and he shows the graph to where, and he also talks about the whistle. They whistle when they do whistle, really beautiful whistle. It's kind of made through their throat, not their lips like we do.
Yeah.
Would you call the Sasquatch an animal? Or I'd call him a being. We're all animals in a way.
Yeah.
But he's a being. He's not a human being. It's not like us, but they got a human component to them.
Yeah, I would say being too, because they are emotional beings too, because they can feel emotion. They know when you're, if you're a bad person going into an area and they don't want you there, they'll get you out. But if you're not a bad person and
they'll read your vibration. They'll read your vibration.
Yeah.
They'll read your aura. We all have an aura and
Exactly.
energy surrounding us. It goes out so many feet around us. And you got bad intentions, they'll see it right away. If you don't have bad intentions, they'll see that right away. I think that's why we were so fortunate up there to interact with them the way we did, because they realized we didn't want to shoot them. We took care of guns up there. We always had high-powered guns. They didn't bother. We didn't bother them. We never shot at them. They knew what we were there for. We were there to hunt.
Well, you probably explained that to them too. Like I would say,
I
out
don't
there,
think
hey,
you have to say it. I think they know it. They read your.
mentally,
Yeah, they read your vibration.
we're not here to hurt. You already know that.
All right. Believe me, people want to know, why did you shoot one? Well,
No.
People have we are, as a species, we tend to want to
I
kill
heard
things
of
we
one
don't.
guy that did.
We kill things we don't understand. Well, yeah, Justin and Shemaya, but
Yes, but I heard that when this guy shot, I don't know if that was the name or not, but I know I watched a documentary sometime. He said he shot at a juvenile, killed it, not totally, but it was dying, and he ran over to it. And in this documentary, he looked at it and said, he freaked out because he said it was way too human
human-like.
looking, that
Yeah.
he said that he's going to jail, and he, buried it and everything else. But, it's,
Well, I think who you're talking about. He shot the mother first. And,
yes.
shot her in the side. She ran off in the woods, and the baby was one of two. There was twins, and
Yes.
they're real
But he did
small.
get one of them, I think.
He
But that
shot
was,
one of them. He shot it in the throat, and it was really a horrible story. And he swears by it to this day. But you can't get science to pick up on that because they don't want to believe that.
well, you could see his eyes when he is telling that story. He's re-tearing up, telling that story, because he's visualizing holding this being that he just, shot in his arms as it passed. Like, I couldn't do it.
Well, after he covered it up, because he was afraid
Yeah.
it was out of season. They went back 3 weeks later, but there was a lot of snow on the ground. They took a dog back with them.
Oh, that's a good one right there.
Well, then they found something. They cut a steak out of it. They call it a big piece. That's one of the samples that went to Dr. Ketchum, and in Texas, the geneticist. So yeah, there's 43-minute documentary or his interview actually that I've listened to and watched even. Of course, that's not far from where our camp is. Our camp's in the Sierras, and it's anyway, it's interesting stuff, but it's a shame that people want to kill things they don't understand.
Oh, I know, and you know what, and
I don't hunt anymore for that reason. I don't like to see things die, and we're here to be caretakers. We should be doing that.
Exactly.
Now, I don't have any problem with somebody shooting something to eat because I think it's more healthy. It's healthier than going into the store and buying this cloned meat. But you got to eat. You got to eat good, huh?
I agree with Lady Daniel here that the Star Wars Wookiee is a design from the Sasquatch because designed from it because you know what? I always have a guest on here and I always say this. Walt Disney, is in line with CIA because, they said we need a funny alien, make Marvin the Martian. And if you do, then everybody's going to think aliens are just crazy people, Nobody will believe them. They made Marvin the Martian. Then, we need something that is more scientific. Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Here comes George Lucas. Yeah.
Yep, but then you got the actual scientific person in charge of Blue Book, Hynek. The end of the film, they pan around to see the military people and they pan back to the ship. When they pan around, you see Dr. Hynek right there in the movie, and I'm like, "Yep, I knew you had a part to play in this movie."
That was Arnold. This 19 just before Roswell incident up in.
But they put little bits and pieces of truth.
Up in Washington, this guy on this boat saw these 6 or 7 UFOs.
Yeah,
and they was flying over. And one of them was having a problem with dropping stuff out of his craft, disc-like craft. And Arnold's the one who reported this because he's seen them also. But this guy, some of the debris that came down killed his dog, broke his son's arm, and the rest of it was scattered over the island, Maury Island. It's called the Maury Island incident, and people could see that. It's a film, a documentary. Yeah. It's called The First Men in Black. It's really been recorded. But there's a UFO. And I mean, that's what got them all going is we found out it wasn't a weather balloon, though, down in Roswell, didn't we?
Oh, yeah, right.
Well, I don't trust the government, to be honest with you. They know a lot about this stuff, but if they can't explain it, they got to make fun of it or get rid of it somehow. So
I think everybody just needs to look at the subject, research it yourself, and make your own decision. And if you do that, you're going to come to the same conclusion that me and Ron have.
Well, I encourage everybody to do their own homework.
Or a different one, but
what we're given on this, I think one attribute we have as humans, if we have the choice, we can make our own choices. Don't let anyone talk you into something that doesn't feel right in your heart. And your choice of whether to believe this or not, it's up to you. But do your homework before you go poo-pooing it down, because there's something to this, and I think everybody should know. I'm not here to try to convince anybody other than I just tell you my story and what I think now. But I've been around a lot. What is
your ultimate goal then?
I've been doing this. Yeah.
Well, what is your ultimate goal in doing this? Like, do you want to show everybody conclusive proof, or is it just the mystery itself is more important? You go out there in nature, and
I won't be the one, Jay, that shows the proof. It'll be them coming out. Aliens will come out, and they're going to show themselves, and we're being indoctrinated with that all the time right now. So it won't be a big surprise. My ambition is just to spread the word. That's all I do is talk on podcasts like this and speak at conventions here and there about my experiences and what I believe to be true. And people can take it or leave it. I'm in my 80s. I'm not here to try to twist anybody's arm or nothing.
You're just saying from what you've experienced, you've researched, you've done the ground.
Well, the research is what's important. Research it. What got me into this was the Bigfoot encounters that I had. It got me into the ethereal part, who we really are as humans, why we're here, what's really going on, and how it all came about, and what we're supposed to be as humans, and how it's special how very, very special we are. We are. And people need to understand that. Don't degrade yourself by thinking, oh, you're just a piece of meat that's going to die and wither away on the ground. Your
Yeah.
body will, but your ethereal part, your spirit, your consciousness is going to go on. And my books, I've written 3 books. They're all on my site, ronmorehead.com. And anybody can download them if they want to, or they can order the hard copies. So
And I actually have your website, Ron Morehead, and I believe X, and another website. I think your books or whatever, your Amazon one. I think I have that one on there.
well, they're all on Amazon. I mean,
Well, I mean the link to the whole list, I think, or whatever.
oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think
You order them through my website, but they're sent out by Amazon, print on demand. That way, I sell them all over the world. Don't have to worry about the shipping or nothing.
Oh
They
yeah.
take a big chunk out of the cost, but
Oh.
I don't charge a lot for them. It's just I want to get the word out.
Oh yeah, definitely. So do you believe that Sasquatch, or I won't even call him Sasquatch, the being operates on a group consciousness or single? I think
They
group.
all do. We're all
I think it's like
one.
a group kind of like they
We're all
can
one.
connect
If we
or okay.
we're all one consciousness. If we just delve into it, you'll be able to telekinesis, telepathy. We have all these attributes.
Yeah.
Our telomeres have been reduced down. That cuts our age off to 120 years or whatever. But men used to live in the hundreds and thousands of years, and I think our telomeres. I think this is a fact. Our telomeres have been seared to keep us from living that long because we get too smart and we learn how to be gods, how all this stuff really works. But we're stepping ourselves into it now. We're getting better and better, and we'll do that as long as we keep our heads on straight and try to do our meditation and understand things.
And do you think that Bigfoot reveals himself to certain peoples
Yeah,
in a select way?
yeah, your vibration. If you got the right aura going about you, he will. If you're looking for him, because you find what you look for. We create our own. That's physics too. You create your future. There's no such thing except just the now. Time don't exist as we really see it, we think of it.
Well, it's like people think, I'm going to go out there. My vibration is awesome. I'm going to go out there, but my intention behind this good intention is that I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take a photograph and I'm going to get rich, and that's materialism. So obviously you have a different vibration and they're going to see that.
Yeah.
Because that's added to it. It's like, but if I go out there, no camera, no nothing, just if you show yourself, you do. And I'll walk through the woods.
Well, I take a camera with you just in case. In case one of them says, "Hey, take my pictures." True. Time you prove it to everybody, or at least make them a little more open to it. I don't go anywhere without a camera. My cell phone, basically, but cell phones don't work everywhere you go. But the camera will. And
yeah.
They just say connected to a network of consciousness. Oh, Zena.
Yeah, we're all connected to a network of consciousness. This is my the 369.
Well, that looks complicated.
Oh yeah.
Who knows? I got my own guess at that, and I wrote about that in my last book, Bigfoot Unveiled. Just because it's really simple, and I think it fits right into my theory that I've been going on with so long. And then all of a sudden I realized, you got to get to the 6th density before you understand how things really are. But the 9th density is where our goal is. And I got also a chapter in my last book about AI, artificial intelligence, because if our consciousness someday, and it will happen, I think, consciousness can be changed and put into an artificial body. So you'll be who you are, except you won't get sick. You won't, you live for 1,000 years before you have to change things. And
well, it's like I just saw something that I didn't know was happened. I guess happened in 2004. I'm like, this is almost 21 years ago, and I'm just finding out about it. They took a mouse, like a slice of a mouse's brain, only a slice, and they put it on this chip or something with these electrodes all over it. And they got it to fly this F-16 better than Top Guns. Like, I'm like, holy, and that was in 2004. And now we're talking 2025. Oh, it's already been invented. You know what I mean?
I'm reading this stuff going across the bottom here. That's
Oh yeah, no, you're
interesting.
good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the dreams we have also,
hmm
they can affect them, can't they? If we're dreaming at
Well,
night, they can be like, they can come in and say, hey,
yeah. Because what happens, our resonance, the human resonance,
yes.
how it drops down at nighttime to like 7 point something. And our personal vibrational frequency, when you go into a dream state of the theta, alpha, from alpha to theta, you'll fall into that same vibration, and they can communicate. That's why so many reports are at night, and why people see them at night, because they can communicate with you better in that state when you're in the alpha state, which is not quite asleep, but you're not in the theta state anyway. We're in the beta state now, and when you get into the to the theta states, when you start dreaming, but you got to wonder what dreams are all about, because so many theories about those. But I have some really weird ones sometimes. You feel like all of a sudden you're real. It's real, and something will appear to me, and something will shake my body, and I'll wake up and see something. I'll see a person there or something, and I'll start talking to it, and I'll be awake as much as I am right now, and it's not there. I reach up and try to touch it or something, and it's gone. As soon as I drop out of my nighttime vibration, I guess I call it, into the alpha state or into the beta state, where did I go? It's gone. It's gone. They're gone. You won't see them. You won't see their density is so different.
Well, what do you make of the Bigfoot that's sometimes seen in connection with like military or remote areas? Like they're in their area. That's we were talking about before. Like I want David Paulides to look at this too, because it would connect them. Missing persons might not be Sasquatch; it could be human.
Mm-hmm.
You're next to a government, federal land. You can't go on there.
Yeah. Well, these things can go wherever they want, and there's also the programs, I think, trying to create a super warrior. And there's a whole story about that, how government is trying to do that. So who knows? I know they got stories like that around land between the lakes. How that's where the dog bites coming from, because they're genetically modified. The government's doing this stuff. They're cloning things and genetically modifying different things going on. But I think that's been going on for eons, not with our government so much, but with not with our government, with everybody in this whole earth. There's a lot of hybridization going on, is what I'm trying to say. And a lot of us have been diluted down even. And there's some of us walking around right now that are in high profile places that are part alien. Actually, you got the star seeds that come down. And these kids nowadays, I swear, you get some of the 3 or 4 years old that talk different languages or play the piano like Mozart or something.
Yeah.
You get that stuff going, you got to wonder what's going on here, because reincarnation or energy coming into a biological body on this earth is the way it happens. And that's happening now. But I think this last generation of, these little kids, I got 2 grandkids like that. They're just out of this world. They're just too darn smart.
I know.
Too many things, and I think that's the generation that's going to introduce a lot to us, because they're seed aliens. Okay.
I say they're like you've got newer souls on the earth, and you have souls that have had many more experiences.
Yeah.
That's the way I perceive it.
I think you're right. In fact, the energy can't be created or die. It just can't die. It can't. So that's where these things have been somewhere in the universe, whether it's on Earth or not, somewhere else before they came here, or they've been here recreated into third density to learn something, because everything's trying to learn something. That's the whole idea of it all. is to experience things and learn to respond with love and compassion. I don't say anything else tonight. That's what I want to say.
Yeah.
If we can learn to do that, if we can be peaceful and just understand things has to get that way so we can change when the earth changes into the fifth density. Then
Yeah,
we'll go.
that's one of our quotes right at the bottom. You're reading it. This is our quote. That's the quote I made up. We humans are all one species, born of Earth to spread peace, love, and understanding throughout the galaxy. I don't spread hate. I don't need to. If somebody wants to talk about me, well, then my ear will ring a little bit, and I'll be like, "Oh, cool, somebody's talking about me." It doesn't bother me.
We humans are all one species. Well, humans are. You're totally human. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all one species. We're born of Earth, but we're here to spread peace and understanding, peace, love, and peace and I have peace, love? Yeah, peace, love, and understanding throughout the galaxy. You don't want any hate, anything like that, because
I think that's our primary destiny is to do that in the different realm. Once we pass out of this one, if we graduate enough and learn enough to teach that somewhere else, that's what the Bible says. You will reign as kings and priests. So there you go.
And it goes way back. There's stories thousands of years old that has different Sasquatch type beings that are like, you could either call them Sasquatch, you can call them giants, you can call them Nephilim, Elohim. Elohim was what they called the God, right? Okay.
Yeah. Plural.
It would be
plural.
Yeah, plural. Yep. So it would be like all of that. Mm-hmm. And then you have in history, you have, they couldn't move this 20,000 pound block. Really? Let's
go down to Cusco or go to.
Yeah. Let's do the calculations here.
I've been there. Those blocks are like jigsaw puzzles down there.
But if they were giants, and they were huge, tall people, and we had 12 of them around this block, could they pick it up and move it real quick? Yeah.
But how did they put it so finely with not even mortar in them? I mean, they're like this.
That's an ancient technology. I think of like sound and vibration. They vibrate.
Yeah, they learned how to. Maybe they got the rock to turn into a marshmallow or something that stuck it there. I don't know.
Or that they can mold it too. Yeah, I mean,
they've had something we don't know about
energy. Today. Energy can't be destroyed. First law of thermodynamics. Yeah. Can't be destroyed. It has to go somewhere else. So. Yeah. It's the same thing. It's like you can turn that thing into a marshmallow, mold it in there, let it go. It cools. It's back to a rock. You're done.
Well, I didn't see it happen, so I don't know how it happened, but I just know it happened.
But with them,
stuff's all over down there.
Yeah, and with them saying that we can't duplicate the technology to build the pyramid today, then I go to tend to say with either giants or technology.
Or both.
Yeah. Now, do you think that Sasquatch is going to play a role in teaching us to be more empathetic and more spiritual?
Well, I think they already are.
Okay.
That's what it's taught me. I wasn't always like I am right now. I mean, I am better now than I was.
Yeah.
I was 29 years old when it started happening to me in 1971. So it's just, I just grown. It wasn't one little thing anywhere that really made me jump from one science to another. It was just a gradual process of learning.
You just got to follow it.
Just got to keep following your heart. Your heart's your teller, and that's going to tell you what to do as long as you get in coherence with your brain. The conditioned one, it's the hardest one because, we've been taught certain things. We've been taught this is the only. I tell you, I was in Mexico one time, right in the back of a truck, and these two Mexicans. I didn't speak language then. I speak a little bit now, but I didn't speak any then. These guys were talking up there, and I was in my alpha state, just dirt road, going like
Yeah.
this. And we back there like that. I understood everything they were saying.
Oh, wow.
And it just, all of a sudden I woke up, and I don't know, I say woke up. I was in the alpha state, where you're not asleep, but
Yep.
you're not awake either. And I understood every word that was going on. I don't know. As soon as I popped out of that, I couldn't understand anything again. So it's like you do know everything. Everything is, and we're all one. We're all one. We just learn how to reconnect again. Even Christ said, I wish that all could be one with the Father as I am one with the Father.
Mm-hmm.
If you read the red letter stuff and stop going to this other crap that's, I should say that's not right.
They believe what they believe, and in the end, everybody will be judged accordingly. That's all I say. If you believe in this way, hey, that's fine. Believe that way. I will have I have nothing bad to say about it. But
I don't either.
in the end, you'll find out.
We're all going to find out, aren't we?
Yeah.
It's fun. I've really had a good life. I enjoy everything I've done. I've really been very blessed with my life.
Well, you had a lot of great research too to go.
I've done a lot of that stuff. I rode the back of manta rays. I've swum with the sharks. I've flown my own airplane all the way from Alaska down to Patagonia.
Nice.
I've been very, very lucky. I'm a scuba diver. I wrote a biography for David Pilates. He's putting it in his next book, I think. But
That's
partial biography. I didn't take enough notes when I was doing all the stuff I've been caught up in Siberia and back when elephant being chased by a rhino and all this stuff.
Oh boy! I bet that was fun.
It was. I was trying my best to get a picture of it. While the elephant was running, because the elephant was running. You ever been on the back of an elephant that was running?
Nope.
In one of those baskets by yourself?
Nope.
Then to come across a 19-foot restrictor. I just, never mind. I talk too much sometimes.
Yeah, we can talk offline about it. No, I was gonna say if you had one final message to deliver from the Sasquatch to humanity based on everything you learned, what would they tell us right now?
Know how important you are as a human being with the gift you've been given of life, and make the most of it. And don't be a victim. Learn love and compassion for others. That's my word.
I agree. I definitely agree. 100%. Your thoughts on where Bigfoot research should go next?
Right, what I just said. I think if you learn the vibration and what's going on like that, if you have an encounter, research is just going to stay the way it is. Unless one by accident is shot, killed, and you find the remains and have it studied by the government, which is going to take it away anyway, and you'll never know about it. Unless they can explain it, they're not going to tell you. They only give you what they think you can handle. So
if you go out there and they're like, if we go out there, this guy's going to piss his pants and run away screaming, they're probably not going to show up.
Well, fear is your enemy.
Unless they want you out of there.
Fear is your enemy. That's very important too. Don't be afraid. Go out there and just know who you are as a human, how special you are, and don't be afraid, because fear they'll work on that. And the negative, because there are some bad things out there, and they will work against you if you have the fear aura about you.
Now, will they help you though? Do you think if you, because I've also heard of different things out there, like if you go in the woods and you hear like your name or something, or you hear the same voice, your friend's voice saying, "Hey, over here," it's not him, don't go over there. Is there something else mysterious happening in here? And would Bigfoot like help? Or would he
depends
get
on
out
what
of the area or tell you, Ron, like, hey, don't go in here. There's a giant, I don't know, a witch or a interdimensional beast that'll eat you.
We all have, I think we all have guardian angels, guardians. And yeah, you'll have something. I've had something protecting me. I mean, there's been times when I should have been dead.
Yeah.
And I mean, I shouldn't be here right now, but I am, so I can talk to you.
Yeah.
And so something has protected me, and I'm grateful for it. And I think everybody with the right vibration is going to have somebody protecting it. There are bad ones out there. There's bad things happen. I was up in Portlock, Alaska a few years ago with a filming crew. They tried to rehabilitate this native camp that got abandoned because Bigfoot, supposedly the Bigfoot type creature, was killing people. And I don't know why, because no one's around. This happened in the late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
Part of the newspaper, part of history,
Yeah.
But I gave my opinion, and that's all I could do. But
I don't think he was killing them on purpose. That'd
well,
be my main.
no, they were being killed on purpose. They're being ripped apart.
What, the people?
Yeah, the people. There's 30 of them. They abandoned the whole
But
village.
what happened before that though? Did they
There you
mow
are.
over like thousands?
They were over timbering it.
See, there you
They
go.
were overfishing it. From the pictures I
Yep.
saw, they were. And when I flew over in a
Gotta live in
helicopter,
the
I
moment.
looked. They were not respecting the area, in my opinion. But there's nobody around to talk about that was actually there when all this took place. It was all the newspapers up there.
Wow.
It's a matter of history, and it's a very interesting story. But
Yeah.
really,
Wow.
there are things out there that, and they're not all. You can't offer them cupcakes all the time, and they're not.
That's what you say about your vibration. Like, go out there with good
Well,
intentions.
and I'm sure if
good thing.
one of these things came out of the wood and started screaming at them, they'd have probably shot at it, and that would have pissed it off, and or shot it. Kind of like Daniel Boone, he's got a story about shooting one of these things.
Yeah.
And killing it, and but he found out when he shot it, he had to shoot it in the head. His son had already shot it and didn't kill it. But when he finally got over where his son, they were hunting, when he got over where his son was, this thing had his son. And he shot it in the chest. Excuse me, in the head. His son had shot it in the chest, but didn't kill it. He cut it open after that. Now, this is a story.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's in a book. I got the book right here. I wrote the forward of the book, actually. And the breastplate was solid. The bullet just didn't enter. So you got to shoot it in the head. That's how they killed the Kandahar giant in Afghanistan. They shot it in the head.
It doesn't have like the little indentions we have. It's a solid piece.
That's what.
Oh, that's what you heard.
That's what Daniel Boone said in his memoirs.
That would make sense though too, because I've heard of hunters that.
Well, it's like Albert Osman, who shot one in Mount St. Helens in 1924. He said he shot it. He knocked it over the cliff, and they went down and couldn't find the body. Well, did it die or did the others take it away? I don't know. But he went in with a whole posse. I mean, a bunch of guys looking for it.
Either or at that point, because
you don't know.
Everybody says, "Oh, why don't we find Bigfoot carcasses in the woods? There's so many." Okay, there's a lot of bears out there: black bear, grizzly, brown bear. Do you find bear bones in the woods? Not very often.
Well, tell you what happened to me one time. You want one more little story before we go?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, Albert and I was walking into camp. We all of a sudden, wham, just right in front of us, this cloud puff of smoke went away and dust. And went over there, and there's a freshly killed deer right there. A bear was eating on it. Seen his tracks. It already defecated. We knew it was up here in this brush somewhere. We thought we better keep going. So we just kept going. Came out a few days later. More of it had been eaten. There's just a few bones left there, I went back a year later. Less of it's a year later. You would never know it ever happened.
Exactly.
And of course, Bigfoot, I think, according to native lore, they take care of their own, and that's because they're more of a human being. Like they're not a human being. They're more sapient, more human-like than people are still looking for the ape in the woods. People are looking for the ape in the woods.
They do burials, or they take their dead with them to where they came from and bury them there.
Could be if they bury them at all. Yeah, they probably bury their body. If they die in this density, once they're in our density, they have to operate by our laws, our rules in this third density environment.
Who knows?
And I think when they interbreed, and they do breed, when they breed, their children have to learn this environment. And that's why I think they play with you, because you see a lot of reports of these people, these things watching children too.
Yeah. or
So
tapping on windows
there's
and
so much
stuff.
stuff. There's so much stuff to cover. You can't do it in 2 hours or whatever we're
Oh
gonna do.
wow. Yeah, no, I'd love to have you on again. But how can listeners learn more and support your work? Because I know you've got books, you've got, I've got all your links in the description. What else can they do to help you out
Well, just buy my books, I guess, and that'd help me if they just know the knowledge because they're all.
and to help the research,
Well, I fund myself most of the time. I'm pretty much retired now, but I spend all my money traveling the world doing different things. But I enjoy
You have
just
fun
doing this
though.
stuff like this. So if you just go to ronmorehead.com. It's got all my stuff there. It's got the books. You can download my books, or you can buy a hard paperback copy.
Yeah.
The two CDs out, and they both have the vocalizations on them. And one of them I narrate, the other one Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek: Next Generation. He narrates the first one. It's Al Berry's story. They're both about 40 minutes long, both CDs. And you can't get the hard copy unless you find a store that's still got them in stock, because I stopped sending out the hard copies from here. In fact, I don't send anything out from here now. It's all covered through Amazon. But you can download this stuff and then burn it to a CD if you want to. And
Yeah.
the vocalizations anyway. The book Voices in the Wilderness, like I say, is coming out with a documentary on that film actually this fall. And in the back of that book, page 126, there's a link on there where when I talk about the context of sound, when I get to the sound itself, you can hear the sound. You can download that link. So it comes with that. I used to send out the CD with it, but I don't do that anymore because I don't do it here anymore. I couldn't get reasonable cost. Get that.
Yeah.
You have to print the CDs and have to. So anyway, I used to send out a CD, but anymore it's just a download of the sounds.
Okay. All right, that's awesome. Well, anytime you want to come back, Ron, you give me an email and you'll be on the next day. You're out there in the woods, because that's what we're doing this summer. Also in the podcast, I'm not just doing guest appearances. We're going live in the field. I've got plenty of equipment over here, probably about 15 grand, 20 grand worth of equipment, cameras, all this. But if I go out the first time, I might not bring everything and just myself with like my cell phone camera, but after that, and I get comfortable and they're comfortable with me, I might bring more equipment out.
That's the way to be. I suggest people don't try to trick them to start with. Just be there and habituate to a certain spot all the time so that they get used to you. And then all of a sudden you'll hear a tree knocker, you'll hear a rock clacking or something like that. But don't try to trick them to start off with, because they'll see ahead of that. They're more aware.
They'll sense it way before you get there.
And once you got their trust, I guess is the word, you started bringing in a recorder or something, and don't worry about a gun, because if you don't have the intention of shooting at one, guns are there. I got a 52-inch rattlesnake that I had to shoot on the trail up there. I take guns, but I put birdshot in the first couple of rounds just because you don't know what you're going to run into. And a bear, they'll take all your food if you're not careful. I know we had to shoot a bear in camp there one time that was ransacking our food.
Yeah.
But you shoot it with buckshot and that gets rid of it. Anyway.
A little smack on the butt. Get out of here.
Yeah.
It's like, what was that movie?
Make me go away.
John Candy. It was, oh my gosh, I'm going to miss this. Oh, my dad's going to kill me for this one. They went on vacation and they went to a camp.
I was shot up at Bass Lake, I think, in California.
Where they shot this bear in the butt. It was a John Candy movie or something or whatever. He was in it. And they shot the bear in the butt and everything, and the hair flew off of it or something. It was it's an old movie. I forget the name of it though. But that's pretty much what would happen. You're just you take something out there to scare it away. You don't want to
well, if I kill something, I mean, they're just trying to live like anybody else, and I don't believe in killing anything anymore. I'm not a tree hugger, but I appreciate trees. They're very important to this earth. We're destroying the earth is the way it is, the way we are, warring species and the wars and all that we got got to change all that. It's got to change. Programs like this hopefully will inspire that to work that direction.
I'm hoping they do, because we need more peaceful people around the country, because
Absolutely. Yeah.
if you're going to the woods thinking that you're gonna, I've got this 50 cal, blah blah blah, you're not gonna do nothing to it. You're not gonna do nothing to it. You're gonna make it angry.
Unless it's an accident, because there are accidents that happen out there, and
there's accidents. They understand that too, though. Mistaken for a bear, okay, or something. That's okay. But if you shoot it and it gets up and you reload and you shoot it again, then you're
yeah.
But anyway, I'll go ahead and let you go, Ron, for right now. Unless you had anything else to add.
That's good. I appreciate you having me on, Jay. It's been a lot of fun. This is what I like to do.
It was a lot of fun, man.
I have conventions lined up. I got 2 on the West Coast here in June, July, and then I got one up in Pennsylvania and one in Kentucky. And here in a couple of weeks, I'm going to Tennessee, Kentucky, or someplace like that.
Oh, nice.
Paducah. I got one in Paducah, Kentucky in May.
Look me up when you're in Pennsylvania. We'll go up to that spot in Ricketts Glen.
Well, I'm going to that camp out Bigfoot thing that's up there.
Okay, the BFRO?
I don't know if it's BFRO. No, I don't think it's BFRO. I think I don't know what it is, but it's a big one. I mean,
okay. Because I know BFRO. I know Chuck from them. He's really good.
Yeah.
But all right, man. I'll let you go, and
okay, Jay.
We'll communicate later.
You bet. Thanks for having me on.
Man.
Take care.
You too. Hey, that was Ron Morehead, everyone. Oh my gosh, wonderful guest to have on. And this is what we need. Everybody knows this: peace, love, understanding. If everybody had that, we'd be so much better as a country, so much better as a people. We humans are all one species. We're born of Earth to spread peace, love, and understanding throughout the galaxy. And if we did that, everybody would be much more happier. I know I'm happy. I'm happy because it doesn't bother me that people say things about me behind my back. Cool. You brush it off. You don't have to take in the hate and give hate back. That's what I'm trying to say, everyone. If you have anything, any more that anyone wants to be on the show or be a guest or has an idea, go ahead and write me an email. Our email's on the bottom, and we will get back to you immediately because we are running this show fast. Next, let's see. Next, actually, let me see what we have next here. The next guest that we have on will be, we have on the 19th, we have Lindsay Laham. She is a healing, and it was the connection between humans and animals. She is a pet psychic. So we're going to have her on the 19th, and that will be started at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So I will see you guys again on Saturday, 8 p.m. Lindsay Laham. We are going to sit there and we're going to talk to some animals. If anybody has, any questions for that, that show, bring it up beforehand and we'll make sure the guest gets it. If not, we're going live on Saturday with Lindsay Laham, pet psychic. All right, guys. Have a good night, Galactic Podcast. Love you guys.